I'm going to be introducing our guest speakers for today. My name is Carl Rebner. I am the Regional Director for IG Wealth Management here in Victoria. I'm just going to say a few words before we get started, before I pass it over to our speakers. First, I just want to say thank you for joining this morning on what's important to think about on your retirement. Some of you might be experienced retirees, some of you might be recently retired or about to retire, and some of you may still have a way to go and you're trying to figure out what do you need to do to get started or plan for your retirement. I assume that you're all here because you have some questions about your stage of retirement that you'd like answered. Some common questions that we get is, what do I want to do when I grow up? And that's kind of tongue-in-cheek. Some people still don't know what they want to do when they go into retirement, and as a result, what's that going to cost? Which leads to the other question we commonly get, what's it going to cost to go through the various stages of retirement? Will I have enough to go into retirement? 40% of Canadians don't know the answer to that question. And then also, what's the chances that I won't have enough in retirement? I think I might, but what's the probability that things may happen that might make me short? Another question a lot of people have is, how do I mitigate taxes? And also, once you're in retirement, you're thinking about your next generation, your family, and you perhaps are thinking about preparing an estate for them or a charitable donation. And how do we do that? How do I do that so that my family members don't fight? Having that peace of mind in retirement is important as well. So those are some questions that we typically get. You might have some other ones that we can hope to answer today. So as I mentioned, first you're going to hear from Kelsey. Kelsey joined Lalli and Associates Private Wealth Management in September 2018. She has her Bachelor of Commerce degree from Railroads and is currently articling to become a certified financial planner. She grew up in Ontario, where she watched her grandfather build the family business. And after university, she worked for a brokerage firm here in Victoria, but ultimately knew she wanted to work with an established financial planning team. After Kelsey, you're going to hear from Amrit. Amrit has his Bachelor of Commerce as well, specifically in financial planning. Amrit has achieved both his certified financial planning designation as well as the financial management advisor designation. Amrit grew up with a great passion for planning that began working in his family's business. When he was 5, his family started what was the first video rental store in Victoria. His earliest memories include watching his father happily interacting with customers and keeping track of finances. As a teenager, Amrit worked at the store on weekends and learned the importance of exemplary client service, thoughtful management, and hard work. Ever since he was a teenager, his peers have gravitated to Amrit to seek advice. He is really a true natural advisor. So you're going to hear from Amrit shortly, but now I'd like to turn over the webinar to Kelsey. Kelsey, over to you.
Thanks for the introduction, Carl. Typically in retirement seminars, there's a lot of talk about markets and rates of return. Although those are very important items to discuss, today we're going to focus primarily on retirement cash flow, taxation, and planning for retirement. As we speak today, it will become more apparent that retirement is not an event, but a journey through various stages. When you were younger, retirement was some far-off thing that you were saving towards. As retirement becomes closer, you start to consider the realities of both being retired and what that really means to you. You start planning for your retirement lifestyle. Once you enter retirement, reality happens, and now as your plans change, you truly get to experience retirement. Eventually, you will become experienced as a retiree, and you will settle into a comfortable lifestyle for you. If you plan well and are fortunate enough, you will be able to leave a legacy behind. Next slide. As we discuss various strategies today, I'm sure you will learn something. It's important to keep in mind that retirement and financial success is unique to everybody. Your story is your own, and so is your retirement. Next slide. You will spend some of your assets in retirement. How much will likely change early on as you try things out and kind of figure out what retirement spending looks like to you. Eventually, you'll figure it out and settle into a more regular spending pattern. Consider this your might spend category. You will mentally put the rest of your assets that's your will spend category. You will then mentally put the rest of your assets into the might spend category. At a certain point, you will become fortunate enough, hopefully, with good planning, to leave a legacy behind. At that point, it's determining who you want to leave it to and how. Planning for your personalized retirement can be an exciting time. Creating a clear picture of this fulfilling stage of life is the accumulation of years of hard work, financial discipline, and successful planning. For most people in or near retirement, the biggest challenge is actually changing from accumulating wealth to turning that accumulation of wealth into a predictable stream of income. The retirement planning process is really not linear, and one can jump in at several points in the process. The process is meant to be ongoing and regularly reviewed. Like life, nothing is as constant as change, and so is your retirement plan. It's important to look at all aspects of your retirement income. So, next slide. So we asked retirees to define their key goals for retirement. They responded with making my money last, maintaining my lifestyle, protecting my assets, spending well, staying healthy, and eventually leaving a legacy. For each of these goals, there's a specific set of realities, risks, and actions you can take to achieve them. We're going to look at them in closer detail, starting with longevity. Next slide. Canadians are living much longer than they did even a decade ago as a result of recent medical advancement, which is a good thing. But it means you have to start looking at retirement a little bit differently. Our retirement life cycle now could be anywhere from 20 to 30 years or even more, and that requires planning. The chart above shows the lifespan of 60-year-olds today. It's important to note that half of these individuals and couples will live beyond these ages, so it's prudent to plan at least into your 90s, if not more. Living longer is a good thing, like I said, it just requires a bit more planning. Next slide. As a result, retirees are worried about making their money last longer. Retirees feel like they're constantly balancing their choices today with their ability to have income later. They are so worried about overspending that they might end up underliving their retirement and not enjoying it as much as they could. Next slide. There's another concern to consider when we talk about living longer, and of course that's inflation. We all know that the price of goods have gone up over time. Consider this example of a fast food meal. Back in the 1960s, it would have cost you 50 to 60 cents for the same meal today that costs over 10 times as much. This is the effect of inflation. Inflation is a reality, and the longer you live, the bigger the impact. Even with low inflation, you can damage your purchasing power. Consider the example above. If you were to start with $1 million now and then take that out over 24 years, even at a low rate of inflation of 2%, you can see that it would be worth $615,000, just over $615,000. Take that to 3%, it would be worth just over $481,000. And then take it to 4%, and it would be worth just over $375,000. This is what we mean when we refer to the loss of purchasing power over time. It's important in any good retirement plan that the cost of inflation is taken into consideration. Unfortunately, a market downturn at the beginning of your retirement can have a really big impact on your future income. Having to take income from your investments and not from growth means there's even less left behind to create income for future years. With the recent market volatility as a result of COVID-19, a lot of folks are nervous about this as they embark on retirement, even in the pre-retirement stage. Of course, you don't want to jeopardize your financial goals either to inflation or to poor market performance. If this market environment has left you concerned, I would be happy, or Amrit or myself would be happy to have a phone call or web conference to talk to you about how you feel about it. Feel free to take time and connect with either Tracy in the chat or look for a time that works for you in my calendar and the link provided in the chat. With all of that being said, how do you lessen the risk of volatile markets? It all comes down to diversification. Over our investment lifetime, we have experienced many different types of markets: rising bull markets, declining bear markets, sideways or flat markets. Even in the early years, the accumulation phase, the investors have the benefit of time to recover from any market volatility. If they stay invested, they continue to invest for the long term, they will actually benefit from this volatility as markets will inevitably recover and push those investment values higher. As retirees enter to the distribution phase, or they start to draw income from their portfolio, the challenge is that they are drawing from their pool of investments and potentially locking in losses to their portfolio if it's in a market downturn. Whereas the accumulation investor will recover fully, the investor in retirement has actually reduced their portfolio and does not recover to the same extent. At this point, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Amit.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Carl. Thank you for that introduction. And I just want to carry on with what Kelsey started to talk about, is sequence of returns. And it's important to understand that we live in a world of averages. And you may discuss this with people, you may talk to people, and you may go see your current advisor or talk with people about, you just need an average rate of return. So let's discuss what that really means. So if we look at it in a world of averages, if somebody has, in the beginning of the retirement at age 65, they have $100,000, and we project out that they need a 5% constant rate of return with a $600 a month withdrawal from their portfolio, and their assets should almost last them till age 90. That's fine if we have a constant rate of return. But it's important to understand that a lot of times we don't know if we're going to have that constant rate of return, because we can just see from past market fluctuations in the last year that that's not always the case. So what does that mean when we look at sequence of returns? So you can see here, if we're going back to that same example of a 5% 3-year average rate of return, and if we start at the top of the triangle and we go down to the down to the right to the second year, it's negative 15%, and then go over to the third year, it's a positive 25%. So if we look at that, we have an average rate of return of 5%. Pretty good. The same thing could happen when it goes counterclockwise. We could hit retirement and it comes off at 5%. At a 5% rate of return in the first year, we have a great next year plus 25%. We're really happy about that. And then the next thing we know is it goes down by 15%. And I find, in my experience over the last 20 years, that is when people start to panic. But still, it's a 3-year average, just like that example that we showed you just a minute ago. So again, let's take a look what that means with that initial graph that I showed you. So if you remember from before, $100,000, $600 per month, 5% rate of return, and constant rate of return, money lasts until age 89. Now, if we look at it from a sequence of return standpoint, we can see now that that capital only lasts them till age 83. So we're taking off 6 years off of that 24 years from 65 to age 89. So basically we're taking off 25% of their spending, lifetime spending amounts. That is a significant amount. So you have to have strategies in place to make sure that when we do have market downturns, that you're not going to be panicked. And also, too, is that you have a place to get your income, and you don't want to be taking money from a falling asset. So let's look at the reverse. Let's look at the counterclockwise, where we have a 5% rate of return, 25% rate of return, and then a negative 15% rate of return. In that case, we can see here that the money lasts out until age 87. So those initial 5% and then the 25% rate of return is significant when it comes to providing yourself with a successful retirement. But we do not want to rely on markets and market volatility solely to make sure that we reach our retirement goals. We have to plan around this to make sure that we have the ability to spend in retirement. So we're going to go through, near the end of this seminar, we're going to answer some questions about how can you do that? How can you make sure that you do have the money to provide yourself with the retirement income that you desire? So here again, we're talking about retirement sustainability again. So we're always talking about a hypothetical withdrawal rate. This is basically $500,000. 50% of the portfolio is in equities, okay? And we're going to be taking out $25,000 per year over that time frame. So in the terms of a hypothetical rate of return of 5.9% over that time frame, you can see when we're starting at age 65, our money is going to last us till we're 100 years old. if somebody sat down and we looked at that, we'd be like, Mike, that's great. I can live till I'm 100. I don't think I'm going to live till I'm 100, because that is really what happens in my meetings with clients and with potential clients, is that when I say that you may live to 100, it's usually met with a bunch of chuckles. Less so now, but it's still left with a bunch of chuckles. So with that being said, if we're able to put out that we can have our money till 100, people are pretty happy about it. But this is where the Monte Carlo and making sure that we can look at the way the portfolio can actually perform, and with our software to be able to show you what kind of market conditions can actually happen. So in this slide here, you can see here, there is just a rainbow of different slides here. You can see here, and on the far left, you can see here that the money only lasts until age 78. Well, that's only 13 years after retirement if we have some downturns during that time frame. You can see there that it lasts beyond, and the top there, it lasts beyond 100 years old. So it's doing very well for clients. But at the same time, we know that these variabilities are real. These aren't made up scenarios. These are actual scenarios that we have seen in the marketplace over the years. So we want to make sure within our software, and when we're working with clients, is make sure that they know what the risks are involved and how can we mitigate those risks. So a lot of time we talk about diversification. Oh, just a second. There's just a question came up in the chat line. Somebody's just asking, Amber, do I have to stick with my questions to do with just what's going on in the seminar today? With the slide deck that you have in place right now? And I said, no, absolutely not. If there's a question that's outside of what I'm talking about today, please ask that question and we'll try to get to it. If not, we'll follow up with you. And on the other hand too, as well, you'll see there in the chat function, there's the Calendly link, which you can set up a no obligation review of what you're doing and just have a talk about what you should be doing. So when we're talking about usually with diversification, we always talk about asset allocation. We talk about asset allocation in terms of what should we have in cash, what should we have in stocks, what should we have in bonds, where should we be international, should we be US, should we be Canadian? You know, all that's an asset allocation discussion that we have a lot of time, and we kind of say that that's diversification. But as we get into retirement, it's important to understand that diversification is still about asset allocation, but it is also about the diversification of our income sources. Where is the income coming from? Some people will have the benefit of a company pension plan, and some people that are very fortunate, they'll have a defined benefit pension plan. And with a defined benefit pension plan, we know that the money that's coming in is pretty much guaranteed. If somebody has a teacher's pension plan, if the teacher's pension plan goes bankrupt, well then yes, they won't have a pension anymore, but there are some safeguards there. But at the same time, not everybody has those defined benefit pension plans. Some people will have their OAS, their CPP, they'll be maybe taking some money from TFSAs, from their RSPs, maybe some non-registered portfolios. Looking at annuities, there's different ways to diversify that income. So when we're working with people, we want to make sure that the income that they are receiving on a monthly basis is diversified. Not only is their portfolio diversified, but where is the income coming from? And this will become clearer as we go through the presentation when I get into the case study, because the case study really shows you what that looks like. So withdrawal rates make a huge impact on our retirement. So if we're looking at a withdrawal rate where we're taking out a 6%, if we have a portfolio of $100,000 and we're taking out $6,000 per year out of that portfolio, you can see there by the third line down, that portfolio does last, but it doesn't really grow over time. And you can see all the different market conditions that we have in there. If we're taking out 4%, you can see that money continues, we take money out, but it continues to grow as well. So how much you're taking from your portfolio is a huge impact. And a lot of these studies were done many years ago, and the makeup of portfolios has changed and evolved over time. I don't know about you, but I don't think we can go out there and get a 5-year GIC that's going to pay us 4 or 5% right now. We'd be lucky if we got a 5-year GIC that's going to pay us 1.5%. So that is a very key to what so if somebody comes in and talks to me and says, I have $100,000, I want to draw out 4%, well, we got to figure out how are we going to invest that money. So this is in a graph form, and then here's an example in a table form. So how much can I take out of my portfolio? It's important to understand. So if you look over on the left-hand side is the withdrawal rate, okay, and then there's the years of income. So if we continue on at a 6 or 7% withdrawal rate of our portfolio, you can see after 30 years it starts to deplete. And I find that a lot of clients and potential clients look at this and they're worried. They're worried about that. They're worried about what if I take too much out. But that's why we got a plan to make sure that we have enough money throughout retirement. Because a common thing, the common comment I get from clients from time to time is that, well, I'm going to, write the last, this is years ago, I'm going to write my last check the day before I die. Well, that's probably not the case. So we need to plan out how that's going to look and how much we're going to spend over time. Oh, the question just came up in the chat. Amrit, if we book into your Calendly, does that mean we have to become a client? And absolutely not. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to educate. As Carl talked in the beginning, the point is to educate people as well as to make sure that they know what they're doing in retirement, and we're there to help along the way. Staying healthy. This is not something that typically I see in presentations when it comes to financial planning. When people first retire, they want to be, they hopefully are retiring when they're still healthy. They want to maintain that health. They want, not only they want financial health, but they want physical health as well. Because if you're not physically healthy, you're not going to be able to do all the things that you want to do in retirement. I realize right now we're not traveling as much, but if we're not physically able to travel, how can we spend that money on travel? And so then we want to improve over the years, get better, get healthier, because now we're no longer on that 9 to 5, going to work all the time, and then manage that wealth as we go along and distribute it to our heirs. On that note, is that estate planning. Now, a lot of times people think that estate planning is, you got to have, millions and millions of dollars to plan your estate. Well, that's not the case. We go through this all the time with clients, is looking at what is their estate plan? How do they want to make it look? Who do they want to benefit from their years of work and putting money away? Is it a charity? Is it their family? Is it extended family? Maybe it's the workplace that they used to be at. There's lots of different ways of doing it. There's lots of different ways of making sure that that's done. The key thing is to have a discussion. And the key thing also is to have a will. And the excuses that I have from people about not wanting a will is that I don't want to think about death. Well, I don't see it that way. I don't see about thinking about death. Writing a will is an unselfish act of making sure that people that you leave behind are taken care of, and that that it's easy to pass on assets and also easy to wrap up the estate. So it's important for us to always have a will to make sure that things are in place. So next, if some of these things, as we're going through it, please, in the chat, if some of those things are on top of mind that you're worried about the sequence of return risk, you're worried about your withdrawal rate, those sort of things, when you lay your head down on your pillow at night and you're thinking, hey, that's something that I think about, please let us know and we'll have a discussion about it. What I'm going to go through with you right now is maximizing your retirement paycheck. So we all know we had a paycheck when we were working our working lives. But now we're getting into retirement, and that paycheck that we got from our employer or we took from our business, whatever it is going to stop, or it's going to slow down. So we need to make sure, what does our retirement paycheck look like? And these are key ingredients into this. And so this case example was a couple. The names have been changed to keep their anonymity. So they came in and we had a discussion. So let's just go, I'll just introduce them to you. Okay, Nicole, 59, Sam, 58, they want to retire in 2022. They figure their expenses are going to be about the same as when they were working. That's pretty common for people, is that they don't want to stop spending. And then especially for Sam and Nicole and Sam, they're going to retire when they're in their early 60s. That's going to be their retirement spending years. So not uncommon. They live here on Vancouver Island, and they've got a cottage on the lake. So at first glance, you look at it, they've got $1.3 million in various accounts and savings and inheritance. They've got all this money that they've saved over the years. You look at first glance, somebody might be saying, oh, they'll be fine, no problem. There shouldn't be any issues. And you're right, you look at that, you're like, okay, yeah. I look at that from a different angle and I say, okay, how can we make sure that we have the diversified income sources and that we plan out into the future and make sure that we take care of this? So one of the key things, that we look at here is we look at the standard deviation. If you look on the far right-hand side there, you've got joint GICs, joint non-registered. So standard deviation, really, I won't get into all of it here. What it basically is, standard deviation is a measure of risk, okay? And on the right-hand side, that's the rate of return of those portfolios. So we can see there the GIC's got the lowest amount of risk, and Nicole in her TFSAs had GIC type investments, so she had a low amount of risk in there as well. So you can see there that there is there's a standard deviation that we have to take into effect when we look at our planning. So when they came in to see me, their current plan that they had discussed with their current advisor was they're going to start drawing their RSPs early to spread the tax bite over time and avoid high taxes to the estate. Not uncommon. And for some people, that might work out very well. They're also thinking about transferring their cottage to their son. There's some outstanding taxes due there. Their son is still fairly young, but they're going to continue to still pay the annual property taxes from the GIC. Al doesn't have any savings or extra income and is engaged to someone he barely knows. So their son, their son is into a new relationship. He doesn't have a lot of money, but they still want to transfer this over to them because they think from an estate planning standpoint, it's going to save them on probate and other things. And they also want to use their TFSA for annual shortfalls and big lump sum costs. We'll come back to that in a minute while they're still in a high tax bracket. So when you first look at that, we look at, say, okay, what are their expenses going to be in their first full year of retirement? $72,000 of fixed expenses, and discretionaries like going out to restaurants, memberships, travel, the things that you want to do, but you don't have to do. So if we look at that, we look at how much they really need they're going to need about $111,000 each year after tax. So the fixed income that they have coming in is they have about $55,000 in pension income, and they're going to have $22,000 of CPP, and later on in retirement, they're going to have their OAS as well. We just add that OAS because it'll add in there later, little while down the road. But when clients have bridge benefits, it's kind of like they're getting their OAS until age 65. They're also going to have GIC interest income, and then they have their RSPs and TFSAs and non-registers to redeem to fill that gap. So if we look at that, we need about over $160,000 each year with taxes to make sure. So we have quite a big gap there, if you can see that on the income side. So we want to make sure that we look at that and plan for that. So these are some of the things that we came in from an alternative planning standpoint. So what I did is I said, okay, first off, there was no mention of splitting pension income. They kind of knew something about pension income splitting, but they thought it started at age 65. So we had to have a discussion that it doesn't start at age 65, it starts when you do retire if you're receiving that defined benefit pension plan. Redeeming RSPs later instead of earlier. In their case, it was looking at how can we maximize their estate over time. This purchasing a small annuity to provide guaranteed income instead of the GIC, this goes back to what I discussed about before, is having guaranteed income sources. So this assisted them in making sure that they can pay those property taxes over time. The next thing we looked at was optimizing their TFSA accounts. So invest them in a long-term strategy instead of thinking about it as a savings account. So we want to make sure that the TFSA is being used for long-term growth. We got to remember in TFSAs, if we have two spouses and we don't maximize our TFSAs over time, and we can maximize our TFSAs over time, as soon as that one spouse passes away, that TFSA contribution room is gone. So we want to make sure that we're using it on a regular basis. And then we're going to defer the transfer of the chalet to Al because of the capital gains, and also too because of his new relationship. So this is their first plan that we looked at. So this is the plan that they came to me with. Okay, you can see in there that red, and anywhere, the shortfall red is not good. We can see that everything is pretty good. Like the first, when we're looking at this in the first 30 years of retirement, maybe 28 years of retirement, we're looking pretty good. Okay, but there is a shortfall down the road. There is a shortfall down the road. So we want to make sure that we eliminate that shortfall. So that is what we do, is we try to eliminate that shortfall through our planning measures. So let's go into the planning that we talked about just a moment ago. Oh, just had a question came up there on the chat. Well, Amber, you know, they could probably just sell their house and they'll be just fine. Exactly, I agree with you on that one. But a lot of times people, I find with people is they don't want to think about selling their family home when they're in their early 60s. So we want to plan around that to make sure that they don't have to sell their family home down the road. In most cases, people do sell their home and move on and are able to use some of that money to purchase, to fund their retirement. And a lot of cases too is downsizing in Victoria. Downsizing doesn't mean downsizing in price. It usually means just buying something with less room. So it's just important. Good question. Thank you. So first of all, we want to split pension income to help reduce those shortfalls. It's very important that we want to split that pension income. It's a gift that was given to us many years ago, and we need to make sure that we use it to make sure that we can reduce it. So you can see there that by just splitting the pension income, you can see that we reduced those red bars, but that's still not good enough. So now by getting the redemption order perfect, meaning that how much we're taking from RSPs and so on, you can see there, by getting the redemption order in place, we take care of all the red bars. Now you might say, that's not a lot, you didn't have to do a lot to do that. That's exactly it. And that is the point with retirement planning. Retirement planning isn't about big things. It's not about making a lot of money in a stock or making a lot of money on a property and bringing that into a retirement. It's the little things done right over time that will provide you with the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to retirement planning. So that's great. They've got those assets. So how can now, from my standpoint, is how can I make it even better for them in retirement? So the next thing we looked at is we're looking at buying a small annuity. And if we look back for a second here, you can see here we about at the end there, we had about 350,000. And then we're just, with that annuity, you can see there in the middle there where we just highlighted, we're going to increase the amount of money that they have for their heirs down the road, Al, as he ages. The next one is making better uses of the TFSA. This is an important part. When the TFSAs came out in 2009, people saw it as $5,000 a year. Who cares? Not a big deal. We're now at the TFSA contribution values now is at $69,500 per person over the age of 18. What we have to look at from that standpoint is that what are we doing to maximize our TFSAs? And it's important to take into account how we're using those. I'd much rather people use their TFSAs as an estate planning tool or something that they're going to plan for major purchases down the road. So you can see here, increases it again. Leave the capital gains tax until the end. The reason why people want to transfer assets to their kids early is they feel that they're going to save on probate. In BC, probate's approximately 1.5%. That's fine, but in my mind, the risks that are involved by transferring it to the kids is a lot greater, especially in this case, their son, new relationship. Once they transfer that asset to him, it's no longer their asset. Nicole and Sam no longer have that asset. So it's important for us to make sure that that asset is kept in the family. So he's young, you never know what's going to happen, may go into business, may get sued, lots of different things. Marriage breakdown, lots of different things that can happen. I come up to this question is probably one of the most asked questions in my practice. So based on this, this is all based on constant investment returns. So that's important for us to make sure that we look at it from a standpoint of what we talked about before is a sequence of returns and variable rates of return. So if we take a look at that, I'm going to show you that when we do our Monte Carlo analysis. So their investment plan that they came into us with, their original plan with pension income splitting, when we just put that pension income splitting in, we can see there that they had a 67% chance of making it in retirement. So I look at grades in school. 67% is kind of like a high C+. And I don't know about you, but if I'm going into retirement, I want an A, at least an A. So when I look at these numbers, I want to make sure that I want to keep raising that up as we go along. So you're going to see in a moment here, as we keep entering those different things into the plans, all the different things into the plans, we can see that we're going to continue to grow the chances of succeeding in retirement. So the next one here was change the redemption order of the retirement assets. You can see we went from 67% to 83% by just changing how we're taking the RSPs. I think this is massive. So we've changed it with the Monte Carlo. We've now done 124 out of those trials. 124 of those trials were in the green light zone, and 26 of those trials were in the negative zone. So we can see here that we're getting there. We're at 83%. We're almost at that A. And I really would like to get to an A+ eventually. Adding a small annuity for the guaranteed income source. You can see there we jump 83 to 89. We're now in that high A category. An A starts at 85%, so we're into that A minus now, A minus range. Now we're going to go to A and A+. It's important for us to make sure that our clients are very confident in their retirement and their retirement goals. We add another 3% by using those TFSAs properly and keep topping them up. Even if we have non-registered assets that we have in a taxable situation, redeeming those assets and putting them in the TFSA in the same type of investment will give us more money down the road. And the next one is waiting to pay those capital gains taxes down the road. This is a big one. Paying those capital gains taxes and waiting. You can see here 95%. If I was going into retirement right now and the ability to cover all my retirement needs at 95%, I would be really, really happy. If I was at 67%, like it was to start with just the pension income splitting, without the pension income splitting, it was even lower. So if I came in with that, I don't like the C+ range. I need to make sure that I'm in the A range. And this is exactly what we see here with these people's plans. So let's look at it from a graph standpoint. What does it mean overall? So if we look at here, key values for each. So the initial plan, their net lifetime spending is about $6 million, lifetime tax just under $2 million, net estate just around $2 million. Okay, and the chances of success was around 66%. Now if we just put the first one in there, and when we split the pension income to begin with, you can see 67% went up, net lifetime spending went up, and our taxes went down. Not a bad thing. A little bit, just do something small. It's just a box on your tax returns and we get things done. The next thing, change the order of redemption. We can see there that you can see the net lifetime spending went up to over $500,000. The net lifetime tax went up because we're taking money from RSPs, but you can see the net estate goes up by almost over $300,000 because of what we're doing with our spending and how we're redeeming those assets over time. The next one here was buying the annuity. You can see there, if we go back for a sec, you can see it's just a slight taxes go down because we got rid of that GIC, we bought a tax efficient annuity, and now we're getting that income. You can see there that our spending didn't go really, our net lifetime spending didn't go up a lot, and neither did our net estate, but that's okay. That's not the point of the annuity. The point of the annuity is to have a guaranteed income and less tax. The next thing we did is we took a look at optimizing the TFSA. So optimizing our TFSA, we can see there that our net lifetime spending didn't really go up. Our net lifetime tax kind of stayed the same. But what happened is our net estate went up over $600,000. adding to our estate. So now our estate's approaching on, the net estate's approaching on $3 million, which is great by just optimizing that TFSA over time. So I encourage people to optimize that TFSA. Then the last one is defer the capital gains. We can see here now that over their lifetime, they're able to spend $522,000 more over their lifetime. Their tax went up by about $125,000, but they got $522,000 to spend. Not a bad trade-off, I don't think. And then by waiting to give Al the cottage, they actually the estate went up by over $1 million. So we're increasing that value of the estate. That net estate's going up because of just the little things that we're doing along the way. It's important to understand that financial planning in our practice is what we every day when we get out of bed and we get excited about what we do for clients, is our main mantra is that we guide families to financial success. Meaning that we as a whole, we as a team, head office team, the team here in Victoria and on the Lower Mainland, we assist people in achieving financial success. And financial success is what they determine as success is. And we want to make sure that we do that every single day for every single person that we deal with. So just a little bit of a reminder here about our team. Our team here is myself, been at IG Wealth Management for over 20 years now. Kelsey has joined us back in 2018. Tracy has been at IG in different roles with me for over 18 years, but for 35 years plus with IG. And then Beatrice comes to us with her technical savvy is unbelievable. So we're so happy to have this diverse team to assist our clients. And then we have our different specialists there. It's important for us to look at that planning is not a product. At Lalli Associates, Private Wealth Management, you, the client, are in the middle. We're talking to your personal advisors. Just yesterday, I was talking to one of my clients' accountants, making sure that we're on the same page. Nothing worse than clients going to see their accountant and they said, oh, Amrit said to do this. And the accountant said, no, I don't think we should do that. That's confusing. I don't want that. I want to make sure we're all on the same page and helping the clients move forward to have financial success. Our in-house specialists, we have the tax and estate, securities, insurance, mortgage specialists here in-house, and then we go to our head office people when we need that advanced financial planning, those people to assist us. That's all they do all day. They're CPAs, they're lawyers. They're helping us put together plans for clients, just like the one you saw for Nicole and Sam. And you can see there that now, after they came and saw me and our team, that we're at 95% of the retirement instead of the mid-60s. So C+ to an A, and I love it. So what we do, oh, just a sec. Oh, Tracy's just putting back the chat. Put back the chat here, and I'm going to go to the questions in a minute, just so you know. But I just want to get through this here for 1 second, and then I'm going to take a look at the chat. So just hold on 1 second. So just to recap what Carl said is, it's important that we start with your own current situation right now. It's important for us to understand what that looks like. What that looks like, your plan, what you want to accomplish, clarify those goals, clarify your situation, and customize your investment plan. I think Tracy's going to put up the Calendly link again. So again, if you're thinking, well, I got some questions, I got some, put us down for 15 minutes, half an hour, and we'll gladly answer those questions for you. The process of the living plan is making sure that your plan is for you, and that we're monitoring it on a regular basis and making sure that it's taken care of for you. So a couple questions that I always ask people during these seminars. It's just a moment of truth. So I'm not going to read out all these questions. You can read just as well as I can. One of the questions I ask people, do you hear from your advisor at least once a year? That's a minimum. Is your advisor a certified financial planner? My advisor understands my tolerance for losing money because we've talked about it. You can look at all these things. We've talked about guaranteed income. You can grade yourself on this. Say, how much is it actually happened for me? Is this being done for me with my retirement plan? So while you're reading that, I'm just going to look at the chat function. So we're just getting the questions up and running here. So I'm just going to just take a look here. Just going to go into the chat function here. Okay, so a couple of questions that came up in the chat is somebody is looking at retiring in the next couple of years, and they're wondering, should they get started now or should they be waiting until they're like a couple of years out of retirement? I always say it's better to get started sooner than later, and it's important for us to make sure that we have our retirement plan in advance. So by all means, go into the Calendly link, put down a question that you'd like to have answered. Put us into your schedule, and then we'll have a video chat or a phone call just to answer those questions for you and assist you along your way. So I want to end with thanking you for being here today, and thank you for coming out to this webinar. And we do appreciate your attendance. And if there are any questions now, or you can definitely email us, you can call us. We will follow up with everybody, and we want to make sure that you're taken care of. And thank you and very much, and have a great day. And we hope to see you soon.